Something completely unexpected just started circulating online, and it's pulling in millions of viewers within hours. A new wave of clips allegedly tied to Candace Owens' commentary has sparked intense debate after she referenced what some online users are calling stunning allegations connected to a supposed DNA test situation involving Charlie Kirk. And while nothing has been officially confirmed, the way this topic is spreading across social media is making it one of the most talked about discussions of the moment. At first, it began quietly, just short reaction clips, a few screenshots, and scattered posts hinting that Candace Owens had brought up something unusual during a broader discussion. But once those fragments started getting reposted, the narrative shifted fast. What was once vague commentary suddenly became a viral, mystery topic that people everywhere are trying to decode. Within hours, comment sections were flooded with theories. Some users claim the remarks were taken completely out of context, while others insist that there is a deeper layer to what was being suggested. And because the original clip is being shared in multiple edited versions, each one slightly different from the last, the confusion only keeps growing. What makes this situation even more intense is how quickly it escalated beyond its original source. Influencer accounts, reaction channels, and breakdown pages have all jumped in, each one offering a different interpretation of what was actually said and what it might imply. Some frame it as nothing more than internet exaggeration, while others treat it like a developing story with hidden implications still unfolding. But here's where things take a turn. Instead of clearing up the confusion, every new explanation seems to make it worse. Every breakdown introduces a new angle. Every reaction adds another layer. And every replay of the clip sparks a fresh wave of speculation. Now the internet is divided. Did Candace Owens actually reveal something significant about a DNA test situation? Or is this just another case of social media turning a short comment into a massive, misunderstood narrative? Because depending on who you ask, you'll get a completely different answer. And that's exactly why this story is spreading so fast. Let's break it down. In today's digital media environment, political commentary, celebrity culture, and viral content often collide in ways that blur the line between what was actually said and what audiences think was implied. A single clip, sometimes only a few seconds long, can be removed from its original context, reposted across platforms, and reshaped into an entirely different narrative depending on who is sharing it and why. That is exactly the environment in which the current discussion around Candace Owens and a so-called DNA test situation involving Charlie Kirk has emerged. The topic itself is not grounded in any single verified report or official disclosure, but rather in a chain reaction of commentary clips, reaction videos, and social media interpretations that have built momentum over time. The original reference appears to come from broader commentary discussions where Candace Owens has historically engaged in political critique, cultural analysis, and controversial debates. Because of her high-profile presence in online political discourse, even indirect mentions or loosely connected remarks tend to attract significant attention. In this case, users began circulating fragments of discussion that were interpreted as referencing a DNA test situation, though the exact context and framing of those remarks vary widely depending on the upload. As the clips began circulating, they quickly detached from their original setting. Some versions were shortcuts taken from longer commentary segments, while others were edited compilations designed to highlight specific phrases without the surrounding explanation. This is a common pattern in viral media cycles. Once a clip is extracted from its full context, it becomes flexible enough to support multiple interpretations, even contradictory ones. From there, the background narrative began to form, not through a single verified event, but through accumulation. Online users started connecting unrelated discussions, past interviews, and previously unrelated commentary moments, attempting to build a coherent storyline out of scattered fragments. In many cases, this process happens organically in digital communities where audiences actively participate in interpreting ongoing narratives, especially when the subject involves well-known public figures. Candace Owens, in particular, is often at the center of online debate due to her outspoken political commentary and willingness to engage in controversial topics. Because of this, her statements are frequently dissected in detail, sometimes far beyond their intended meaning. Even minor remarks can be reframed into larger claims once they enter the viral ecosystem. Charlie Kirk, as another prominent public figure in political commentary circles, is similarly subject to heightened public attention. His association with broader political discussions means that any narrative linking his name to controversial topics tends to gain traction quickly, regardless of the original intent or factual basis behind the connection. In this environment, the idea of a DNA test situation became less about a confirmed event and more about a loosely defined talking point that spread through repetition. Different accounts began presenting it in different ways, some as a misunderstanding of a broader conversation, others as a dramatic interpretation of something never explicitly stated. This inconsistency is one of the key reasons the topic continues to circulate. There is no single authoritative version of the claim, only multiple competing interpretations. At the same time, social media platforms amplify this kind of ambiguity. Algorithm-driven recommendation systems prioritize engagement, meaning that emotionally charged or mysterious content is more likely to be shown to users. As a result, even unclear or partially formed narratives can gain significant visibility if they generate discussion, debate, or curiosity. This has led to a situation where many viewers encounter the topic without any background context at all. They see short clips, dramatic captions, or reaction videos without the original source material, which naturally encourages speculation. Once speculation begins, it often feeds itself. Each new interpretation adds another layer to the conversation, making the original context even harder to recover. It is within this fragmented and fast-moving environment that the current wave of attention around Candace Owens' alleged remarks has developed. Rather than being a single, clearly defined revelation, the story exists as a collection of interpretations shaped by editing, reposting, and audience reaction. And as the discussion continues to spread, one central question keeps resurfacing across platforms: how much of what people are reacting to is actually based on what was said, and how much of it is the result of how it was presented afterward? That question sets the stage for the next phase of the story, where interpretation, conflict, and viral amplification begin to collide in ways that push the narrative far beyond its original starting point. As the DNA test situation narrative continued spreading across platforms, the discussion quickly shifted from curiosity to conflict. What started as a loosely connected set of clips and interpretations was now being treated by different online communities as either a misunderstood piece of commentary or a deliberately overlooked revelation. And with that split, the story stopped being about the original content and became about who was interpreting it correctly. The first layer of conflict came from how differently people were actually watching the same material. One group of viewers insisted that there was nothing substantial in the circulating clips. To them, the situation was a textbook example of how internet speculation grows. A few seconds of commentary are clipped, stripped of context, and then re-uploaded with captions that suggest meaning that was never explicitly stated. From this perspective, the DNA test framing was not evidence of anything, it was a reinterpretation built on selective editing. This group pointed to a key issue: absence of verification. No official statement, no documented source, and no consistent original recording supported the way the narrative was being presented online. In their view, the entire situation was a product of viral distortion rather than factual disclosure. They argued that modern social media encourages exactly this kind of misunderstanding, where ambiguity is treated as hidden truth. But the opposing group saw the situation very differently. To them, the repeated circulation of the same phrase, DNA test situation, across multiple commentary accounts was not random. They argued that even if the original context was unclear, the persistence of the topic suggested that something meaningful had been said somewhere, even if it was fragmented across different discussions. This group was less concerned with official confirmation and more focused on patterns, repeated references, overlapping interpretations, and the sense that multiple creators were independently arriving at similar conclusions. This disagreement created the core tension of the narrative, interpretation versus implication. As the debate intensified, commentary creators stepped in and amplified both sides. Some produced detailed breakdowns attempting to debunk the claim entirely, carefully walking through the origin of the clips and explaining how easily political commentary can be misrepresented when shortened. These videos emphasized media literacy, urging viewers not to confuse viral repetition with factual accuracy. At the same time, other creators leaned into the mystery. Their content framed the situation as a developing story, suggesting that even if the current evidence was incomplete, the sheer volume of discussion indicated there might be more context that had not yet been fully explored. These videos often used dramatic pacing, zoomed-in screenshots, and selective quoting to heighten curiosity. Even without introducing new facts, they succeeded in keeping the conversation alive. As both sides grew louder, the conflict escalated into a full-scale interpretive split across social media. Comment sections became battlegrounds of perspective. One side accused the other of overthinking everything, while the opposing side accused critics of dismissal without investigation. Neither side could fully convince the other, because both were working from different assumptions about what counts as meaningful evidence in the first place. Then came the first twist. A new wave of posts began circulating suggesting that the DNA test situation, phrase being widely discussed, was never part of a single coherent statement, but rather a reconstructed idea formed from multiple separate conversations. According to these posts, what viewers were interpreting as one allegation was actually an amalgamation of unrelated commentary fragments stitched together by viral reposting. This claim immediately changed the direction of the debate. If true, it meant that there was no single moment to point to, no definitive clip containing the alleged statement, and no central source anchoring the entire discussion. Instead, the narrative was being built retrospectively, assembled by audiences trying to make sense of disconnected pieces. For many viewers, this explanation was convincing. It aligned with how social media often behaves. Isolated moments get extracted, combined, and reinterpreted into cohesive stories that never existed in that exact form. It also explained why different versions of the same claim sounded slightly different depending on where someone encountered it. However, for others, this explanation felt incomplete. They argued that even if the narrative was fragmented, the consistency of interest around the same theme still required explanation. Why were so many unrelated discussions converging on the same idea? Why did the phrase continue to resurface across multiple accounts independently? To them, fragmentation did not eliminate significance, it only made it harder to trace. This disagreement deepened the conflict further, shifting it from what was said to why people are saying it now. At the same time, algorithmic amplification began playing a visible role. As engagement increased, platforms continued recommending similar videos, reinforcing the illusion that the topic was more structured and widely supported than it actually was. Users who had never seen the original context were now encountering the narrative through reactions and breakdowns alone, which further distorted understanding. This created a feedback loop. Speculation generated engagement, engagement generated visibility, and visibility generated more speculation. Within that loop, the original meaning of the clips became less important than the momentum of the conversation itself. And just when it seemed like the discussion might settle into the idea that everything was a fragmented misinterpretation, another layer of uncertainty emerged, suggesting that even the origin of the clips being analyzed might not be as straightforward as previously believed. That development pushed the entire narrative into its next phase, where escalation and ambiguity began merging into something far harder to separate from fact or interpretation alone. As the debate around the so-called DNA test situation continued to spiral, the story entered a phase where uncertainty itself became the main driver of engagement. What had begun as fragmented commentary analysis was now evolving into a fast-moving viral cycle where every new post, repost, and reaction added pressure to a narrative that still had no confirmed foundation. The escalation didn't come from one definitive piece of evidence. Instead, it came from accumulation, more clips being added into circulation, more commentary accounts reacting, and more viewers encountering the topic without any shared baseline of understanding. Each new audience member entered the conversation at a different point, saw a different version of the story, and left with a different interpretation. That inconsistency became the fuel for rapid expansion. Soon, compilation videos began dominating timelines. These weren't original recordings, but stitched together edits combining unrelated moments from different discussions, often presented as if they formed a continuous thread. In some cases, creators would place captions over commentary segments implying that certain phrases were connected, even when the original speakers were clearly discussing separate topics. This is where escalation intensified. Viewers started to believe they were uncovering a deeper narrative simply by watching more versions of the same fragmented content. The more they consumed, the more connections they believed they could see. Small phrases were treated like clues. Pauses were treated like implications. And unrelated commentary segments were treated like missing pieces of a larger puzzle. At this stage, the story stopped behaving like information and started behaving like pattern recognition, whether those patterns were real or not. Then came the so-called shocking reveal. A new wave of posts began circulating claiming that the entire DNA test situation narrative had originated not from a single statement, but from a chain of misinterpretations that began with a completely unrelated discussion. According to this explanation, a casual reference in a broader commentary segment, originally not about any personal or biological claim at all, had been clipped, reposted, and gradually reframed through captions and reaction videos until it evolved into something far more dramatic in public perception. If accurate, this meant the entire controversy was not based on a hidden disclosure, but on a transformation of meaning through repetition. This idea hit the internet hard. For some viewers, it felt like a final clarification. It explained why no original source could be consistently identified, why different versions of the claim kept circulating, and why every attempt to trace it back led to slightly different interpretations. In this view, the mystery was never real in the first place. It was constructed through the mechanics of viral media. But for others, this explanation did not fully resolve the tension. Because even if the origin was misinterpreted, it did not explain why the narrative spread so effectively, or why so many unrelated viewers arrived at similar conclusions independently. To them, the speed and scale of the reaction still suggested that something about the content resonated in a way that went beyond simple misunderstanding. And that's where the shock element of the reveal truly landed, not in proving something hidden, but in showing how easily meaning can evolve once content enters the viral ecosystem. At the same time, reaction content began shifting tone. Some creators framed the situation as a cautionary example of digital misinformation cycles, highlighting how quickly a phrase can detach from its original context and become something entirely different through repetition. They broke down how algorithmic amplification rewards engagement over accuracy, meaning that the most emotionally compelling interpretation often spreads faster than the most accurate one. Others, however, continued to treat the situation as unresolved. They argued that even if the origin was unclear, the continued circulation of the narrative suggested that audiences were picking up on something they found meaningful, whether that was emotional tone, perceived implication, or simply curiosity about high-profile figures. This tension created a split narrative environment where two realities coexisted. One where the story was an example of viral distortion, and another where it was a developing topic still missing key context. As both interpretations spread, the escalation reached a peak where the original topic was no longer the center of attention. Instead, the focus shifted toward how the internet constructs meaning itself. Comment sections became filled not just with opinions about the claim, but with meta-discussions about why people believed it, how clips spread, and what role platforms played in shaping perception. Then came another twist layered on top of the first. A separate wave of commentary suggested that even the attempts to debunk the narrative were contributing to its spread. By constantly referencing the DNA test situation phrase, even in denial, creators were unintentionally reinforcing its visibility in algorithms, ensuring that it continued to appear in recommended feeds. In this sense, both belief and skepticism were feeding the same cycle. That realization added a new dimension to the escalation: control. Who actually controls a narrative once it becomes viral? The original speaker? The editors clipping the content? The commentators analyzing it? Or the audience repeatedly engaging with it? By the end of this phase, the answer was unclear. And as attention peaked, one final question began circulating across platforms. If the story was built entirely through fragments, reactions, and reinterpretations, then where exactly does the truth begin, and where does it end? That question set the stage for the next phase of the narrative, where public reaction would take over completely, and the conversation would move far beyond the original clips themselves. Once the DNA test situation narrative reached peak circulation, the reaction phase hit fast, and it didn't stay contained to niche commentary spaces for long. What started as fragmented clips and interpretive breakdowns quickly expanded into a broader online conversation where audiences, creators, and media analysts all began reacting to the same story from completely different angles. The public reaction was immediate and sharply divided. One group of viewers pushed back strongly against the entire framing of the situation. They argued that the narrative had been built on unstable ground from the beginning: short clips, recycled commentary, and captions that implied meaning without providing verified context. From their perspective, this wasn't an unfolding revelation. It was a textbook example of how digital content gets distorted once it enters the viral ecosystem. They emphasized that without a clear original source, the claims being discussed could not be treated as factual, regardless of how widely they were being shared. This group also pointed out how quickly language can shift online. A phrase like DNA test situation, once detached from its original context, can become a flexible label that users attach to multiple unrelated discussions. In their view, that's exactly what had happened here. A loose interpretation had been repeated so often that it started to feel like a concrete event. On the other side of the discussion, a different audience reacted with curiosity rather than dismissal. They weren't necessarily claiming that the narrative was fully accurate, but they believed it raised enough questions to justify further attention. For them, the issue wasn't about proving or disproving anything, it was about the volume of conversation itself. When so many people independently start engaging with the same idea, they argued, it naturally invites closer examination. This group focused less on official confirmation and more on perceived patterns in how the story spread. They highlighted how multiple commentary channels, reaction videos, and discussion threads kept returning to the same phrase, even if their interpretations differed. To them, that repetition suggested that something in the original material had struck a chord, even if the exact meaning was unclear. Meanwhile, content creators played a central role in shaping the tone of the entire reaction cycle. Some influencers approached the situation cautiously, explicitly warning viewers about the risks of overinterpreting fragmented clips. They broke down how easily context can be lost when commentary is clipped and re-uploaded, especially in political and celebrity-driven environments where audiences are already primed to look for hidden meaning. Their content often focused on media literacy, encouraging viewers to distinguish between verified information and viral reinterpretation. Other creators took a more narrative-driven approach. Their breakdowns were structured like unfolding investigations, using dramatic pacing, zoomed visuals, and layered commentary to build suspense around the topic. Even without introducing new evidence, these videos framed the situation as something evolving in real time, which kept viewers engaged and encouraged continued speculation. Traditional media voices also began to acknowledge the trend, though usually in broader terms. Instead of focusing on the specifics of the DNA test situation narrative, analysts used it as an example of how modern digital discourse functions. They highlighted how easily fragmented content can become a viral talking point, and how audiences now participate in shaping narratives rather than just consuming them. Within online communities, the reaction became even more fragmented. Discussion forums and comment sections turned into spaces where multiple interpretations coexisted without resolution. Some users tried to trace the origin of the claim step by step, while others focused on debunking what they saw as exaggerated assumptions. Still others treated the situation as entertainment, following the narrative not for accuracy, but for engagement and curiosity. What stood out most was the lack of a unified reaction. Instead of a single dominant interpretation, there were overlapping clusters of belief, skepticism, and uncertainty. Each group reinforced its own version of the story, often without engaging directly with opposing viewpoints. At the same time, algorithms played a subtle but powerful role in amplifying the discussion. Because content about the topic generated high engagement, comments, shares, replies, and reaction videos, it continued to be recommended to new audiences. This meant that even users who had no prior knowledge of the situation were suddenly exposed to it through curated feeds, often without context. As a result, the reaction cycle became self-sustaining. The more people engaged with the topic, the more visible it became. And the more visible it became, the more interpretations emerged. By this stage, the conversation was no longer anchored to a single event or statement. It had transformed into a layered discourse about interpretation itself, how people form beliefs from fragmented media, how narratives evolve through repetition, and how quickly uncertainty can become the dominant feature of a viral story. And as reactions continued to multiply, one thing became increasingly clear across all sides of the debate. The story was no longer being shaped by what was originally said, but by how millions of people were reacting to what they believed they heard. That realization pushed the narrative toward its final phase, where interpretation, speculation, and public momentum would all collide into one unresolved question. Just when the conversation around the DNA test situation seemed like it had reached its maximum intensity, something unexpected happened, not a new piece of evidence, but a sudden shift in how the entire narrative was being framed online. For days, the debate had been stuck between two dominant positions. One side insisted the story was built on fragmented clips and exaggerated interpretation, while the other believed the scale of discussion suggested there must be something deeper being overlooked. Neither side could fully convince the other, and the result was a looping cycle of reaction videos, breakdowns, and counter-breakdowns. Then came the twist that changed the tone of everything. A new wave of posts began circulating claiming that there was never a single, traceable DNA test situation statement in the first place, not even in the form of a misinterpreted quote. Instead, what viewers had been reacting to, according to this perspective, was something far more subtle, a chain reaction of audience assumptions built entirely from suggestion, framing, and repeated association. In other words, the twist wasn't that something hidden had been revealed, it was that the narrative itself may have formed without any original core statement to anchor it. This reframing hit the internet hard. For some viewers, it finally explained the confusion. It clarified why no one could produce a consistent original clip, why different accounts kept describing slightly different versions of the same idea, and why every attempt to trace the claim back seemed to lead into more ambiguity rather than clarity. In this interpretation, the story was never a single event, it was a collective construction built by audiences trying to fill in gaps that never actually existed. But for others, this explanation felt too convenient. They argued that even if the narrative had been distorted, it did not explain why so many unrelated people began discussing the same concept independently. To them, the consistency of the phrase across multiple platforms still suggested there had to be some originating spark, even if it had been buried under layers of reposting and commentary. And that disagreement created the cliffhanger. Because now the question was no longer just about what was said or misinterpreted, it was about whether anything was ever clearly stated at all. As the debate intensified again, attention shifted to the mechanics of how viral narratives form in the first place. Commentators began breaking down how a phrase can emerge organically from overlapping discussions, get amplified through repetition, and eventually solidify into something that feels like an established claim, even if no single source can be identified as its origin. This idea introduced a more uncomfortable possibility, that the internet can sometimes create events out of pure interpretation loops, where belief spreads faster than verification can keep up. Still, the story refused to settle. Another layer emerged when users pointed out that even attempts to debunk the narrative were keeping it alive. Every breakdown video, every denial, every clarification still repeated the same phrase, ensuring it remained active in recommendation systems and search trends. In this sense, both sides, believers and skeptics, were unintentionally feeding the same cycle. That realization shifted the focus again. Now the discussion wasn't just about whether the claim was real or misinterpreted. It was about how impossible it had become to separate discussion from amplification. The more people tried to define the truth, the more visible the narrative became, regardless of accuracy. And then came the final cliffhanger moment that locked everything in place. A new post began circulating suggesting that the real question was not about Candace Owens, Charlie Kirk, or any alleged statement, but about the audience itself. The argument was simple: if a story can grow this large without a confirmed origin, then the real phenomenon isn't the claim, it's the collective behavior that allowed it to spread. That reframing left the internet divided one last time. Because if the narrative was built entirely through interpretation, then there was nothing concrete left to solve. But if even a fragment of the original discussion had been real, then the possibility of missing context still lingered somewhere in the background. And so the story didn't end with resolution. It ended with uncertainty, looping back into the same environment that created it in the first place, ready to be reinterpreted again, reshared again, and reanalyzed the next time a clip resurfaces and catches attention. Leaving one final question hanging in the air. Was this ever a real revelation waiting to be uncovered, or just a viral echo that kept convincing people it had a source? At this point, the conversation has gone far beyond a single clip, a single phrase, or even a single interpretation. What started as scattered commentary has turned into a full-scale example of how modern digital narratives are formed, reshaped, and amplified in real time. And whether someone views it as confusion, speculation, or collective misunderstanding, one thing is undeniable: the internet doesn't just share information anymore, it reconstructs it. Every viewer who has followed this discussion has played a role in that process. Watching the clips, replaying the moments, reading the breakdowns, comparing interpretations, all of it contributes to how the narrative grows and evolves. In today's online environment, attention itself becomes a form of participation. Some people will walk away convinced that the entire situation was built on misinterpretation and viral distortion. Others will still feel that too many questions remain unanswered to dismiss it completely. And many will remain somewhere in the middle, aware of how easily context can shift, but still curious about how quickly the story spread in the first place. That uncertainty is what keeps topics like this alive long after they first appear. Because in the absence of a single verified origin, discussion fills the gap. And once discussion begins, it rarely stops, it simply changes form. It becomes commentary, reaction content, analysis videos, and endless comment threads where each new perspective adds another layer to the story. So the real takeaway here isn't just about what was said or not said, it's about how information behaves once it enters a viral system. How quickly meaning can shift. How easily context can be lost. and how audiences themselves become part of shaping what the story eventually becomes. Now the question moves to you. After everything that's been broken down, do you think this entire situation is an example of pure online misinterpretation? Or do you believe there's still a core detail people haven't fully understood yet? Drop your thoughts in the comments and join the discussion, because in stories like this, the final version of the truth is often shaped not by one voice, but by many. And if you want more deep dives into viral controversies, hidden context debates, and trending breakdowns like this, stay tuned, because the next story is already building momentum, and once again, the internet will decide what it becomes.